Scott Atran, the author Scott Atran. Is it Atran or Atran, Scott?
Atran.
Atran. Thanks for joining us. His book, Talking to the Enemy, Faith, Brotherhood, and the Unmaking of Terrorists, is far more important than what we call people who give themselves sponge baths. Nonetheless, Scott, there's a lot of questions that I want to get to. You have interviewed associates of Al-Qaeda, Hamas, the Taliban, a number of terrorist organizations. Is that right?
Yep.
And there are a lot of things I want to get to. I want to get to about Afghanistan in particular, but sort of a lot of what you talk about is about who is a terrorist and what motivates a terrorist. And I suspect, because it's the impression that I had and that millions of other Americans have, it might not be what we think it is. Correct?
Right. I mean, terrorists are just ordinary people. A lot of nice guys. There are a few kooks, a few brilliant guys, but it's basically just ordinary people like, well, at least like me, probably like everyone else. It's not the individual that produces terrorists. It's the small groups they happen to belong to.
But I mean, they're not normal nice guys when you engage in activities like this. So is it what we imagine it to be, which is that sort of young men motivated principally by their belief system, by faith, or something else?
Well, faith is a part of it, but you know, a lot of the times I find that groups that organize themselves, for example, into suicide attack squads, it may just be one of the guys that actually happens to be bitten by the jihadi bug, and the rest of them are just friends who go along with him.
But how do you go along with a friend who wants to sort of plant a roadside bomb, or for the love of God, strap explosives around his waist and walk into a restaurant, or even if it's a military target? I mean, I like my friends, but come on.
Well, you know, the original Al-Qaeda were mostly fairly well-educated, married guys. The plurality of them were engineers and did medical studies, and they were in a heroic struggle, they thought, first against the Soviets and then against others. But now we're finding that it's more and more marginalized kids across the world, sort of the driftwood of globalization, who find a thrilling cause and significance in the jihad. You know, people talk about a clash of civilizations. Well, really, that's dead wrong. It's a crash of civilizations, of territorial cultures, and so traditional forms of knowledge and control are shattered, and these young people are sort of flailing about looking for a sense of identity and adventure and ideals. And they're hooking up with one another, and they're hooking up over the internet, or they're hooking up in action groups. And again, it's really just their friends, a bit of their family, and some fellow travelers. And once someone gets the jihadi bug, once they're committed to this sort of ideal, then it sort of takes on a life of its own.
It is a fascinating idea, Scott, to consider that maybe that some of these guys are not so much motivated by the Quran or the teachings of Islam, but that they're just trying to minimize it, but that they're just trying to impress their friends.
Well, you know, what I find in studies, I mean, we also do scientific studies, and religious education, traditional religious education, is a negative predictor of whether you're going to be involved in this. Almost all of these guys are born again into religion in their late teens or early 20s. And the message they receive, you know, I've interviewed and trekked with mujahideen from the remote outer islands of Indonesia to the Atlantic coast of North Africa. And the message is pretty flat and fluid. It's disseminated over the media. I mean, for God's sakes, you know, in Borneo or in Sulawesi, where I was, these people truly were literally cannibals 2 generations ago. And yet now they're plugged in to this massive media-driven political awakening, which preaches injustice to them, and they empathize with Palestinians or Chechens or whatever. And you know, I'm in North Africa, for example, sitting in a cafe, the Chicago cafe in Tetuan, where the Madrid bombers came from, those who blew up the trains in Madrid. And I'm watching Al Jazeera with these kids. Some of them are smoking hashish cigarettes. They're all sort of languishing around, wearing Barca soccer shirts or Real Madrid soccer shirts. And they're looking up at the television, and they're watching images of Iraq, of a father running wildly with his daughter's brains spilling out over the place. I mean, it's nothing like CNN or Fox video games of the war. And then they say to themselves, maybe we can do something too. And again, it's heroic I know it sounds strange, but it is. It's heroic for these kids. It's adventurous for these kids. It's a thrill. And when you're told, you're underachieving and you've got really nothing much to do, and you're told that you too can save the world and cut off the head of Goliath with a paper cutter.
Right, that's going to resonate.
Yep.
How many Al-Qaeda are in Afghanistan?
None. There's almost no Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. There are about 100 left on the Pakistani border hiding in caves from Predator drones. I mean, Al-Qaeda as an organization is pretty much dead.
So when these Predator attacks, when we as we have the surge in Afghanistan, as we go out and search and destroy missions in Afghanistan, we are searching and destroying Taliban, not Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, and I think, to tell you the truth, that's a grave mistake. I wrote a piece in the New York Times last week where I described that Mullah Omar couldn't stand bin Laden, to tell you the truth. He confiscated his cell phone, put him under house arrest, prohibited him from making fatwas. He went into an alliance of convenience with him because he was fighting a civil war, and bin Laden helped him out and built roads for the Taliban. But he had no idea, really, of 9/11. And then after 9/11, the Taliban had a reunion, a jirga, a council, and they were trying to figure out how to disinvite their troublesome guests when the United States decided to bomb them into togetherness.
Scott, I was reading that in your piece, and I was struck by that. Forgive my ignorance. First of all, let's all enjoy the idea of someone punishing someone else by. You are not allowed to issue any more fatwas. Do you hear me? Are you listening? Do not make me say that again. But I was struck in reading your piece by the notion that Mullah Omar and the Taliban were actually literally having a meeting, think, oh, this bin Laden guy, we got to get him out. He's a pain in our ass. And then all of a sudden, the United States attacks, and we have united these two people who were prepared to become enemies.
That's right.
Is that really, I mean, obviously you think it's true, but I mean, that's a remarkable piece of information that I guarantee, whether it's old or not, it is a piece of information that the overwhelming majority of Americans do not know.
Well, let me just give you a fact. There was never a single Afghan in Al-Qaeda before 9/11, not a single one. And there's a very simple reason. The Afghans couldn't stand the Arabs telling them how to pray and how to do jihad. The Afghans fought this war against the Soviets. The Arabs, bin Laden, were in exactly one battle. It was a defensive battle. The CIA didn't even know about it. I mean, Mark Sageman, I know that happened to know the CIA field agent. When they made the official report, they were just interested in Soviet losses. No one knew this guy, bin Laden. And again, he didn't participate very much. And when these guys started telling the Afghans what to do, after the Afghans had spent 10 years fighting the Soviets and spilling their blood, they weren't very happy with them. But again, and they were never into the global jihad. I mean, they were interested in however obnoxious they were, and however noxious their particular way of life in their own nation is. They were never interested in their homeland, in anything but their homeland, certainly not in ours.
I'm also struck by when you answer sort of who are the Taliban, that these are not, we've been sold this sort of, we've been sold a package intentionally or unintentionally, I suspect intentionally, that the Taliban and Al-Qaeda are virtually indistinguishable. But the fact of the matter is, obviously, they are, and not only that, but the Taliban themselves, like, that's not even a real group. Those are just different guys united to get rid of us, who wouldn't necessarily be anything but enemies if we weren't around.
Well, let's make a distinction. There's the Afghan Taliban. The Afghan Taliban came out of Kandahar in the middle of the Afghan Civil War after the Soviets left. It was real anarchy there. Women were getting raped. There was highway robbery. So this guy, Mullah Omar, who was the head of a local group of students, and that's what Taliban means, actually found these highway robbers and rapists and hung them, and then decided to spread his movement across Afghanistan. Many of the students who were part of his movement were refugees of the Afghan-Soviet war. They were sort of disconnected, unrooted from their traditional tribes. And so it was a real movement. Many of the tribes weren't very happy about it, but as they started winning because they were well-armed and disciplined, they more or less acceded to them simply because they were bringing order to anarchy.
But it's not the same movement now.
No. When the United States, remember, you have to consider the fact that the Afghans have always been a decentralized society. Since Alexander the Great tried to conquer them and failed, no one's really conquered them. I mean, Genghis Khan for a while because he exterminated every male in every city. But the way they've survived is through a set of customs. Otherwise, it would be all against all. And these customs include revenge, institutions of revenge, and of harboring guests and giving sanctuary. So when the United States bombed Al-Qaeda and the Afghan Taliban in togetherness, they fled across the border to Pakistan to their brethren, the Pashtun tribes, and the Pashtun tribes gave them sanctuary. Now, none of the Pashtun tribes were very interested in the Taliban ideology, much less Al-Qaeda. But the fact that they gave them sanctuary prompted the United States to demand that Musharraf, the president of Pakistan, send the army in to Waziristan and to start hitting these guys. And they just got pissed off. And they started calling themselves Taliban, although they actually couldn't stand the Taliban ideology, and are now a real threat, much more than the Afghan Taliban. So they're trying to bring down the Pakistani state.
We have very little time left, but I think, and there's so many relevant final questions, but when we continue to fight here, who are we killing, and what are we protecting ourselves from when we kill these people?
Well, we're actually killing the mid-level commanders and the foot soldiers. The problem is that they're being replaced at a faster rate than we're killing them, but the ones who are replacing them are straight out of the madrasas, and actually they're more ruthless and they're more vicious than the senior Taliban leaders, and they're completely unconnected to them. So, for example, in Mullah Omar, when the Quetta Shura sent an alim, a Muslim scholar, to these young commanders to tell them that they've got to obey Mullah Omar's directives and follow the Sharia, they simply bumped the guy off. And the problem is that Karzai and the United States and Pakistan know how to deal with the Taliban. I mean, they've been negotiating, to tell you the truth, for years. They were negotiating under Bush, and they're negotiating now. And they're not going to be able to control these young guys. So actually, the only success the surge is having is killing these young mid-level commanders, and that's, in effect, cutting everybody's throat.
Well, that's encouraging.
Hey, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
How do we fight Al-Qaeda? I mean, if all this is incredibly counterproductive, which I totally believe, what do we do? If as we had in 2001, they attacked us from a sanctuary in Afghanistan, and whether that was actually going to be a sanctuary is a good question, as you alluded to. But what do we do? How do we fight them?
Well, to tell you the truth, first we decouple the Taliban from Al-Qaeda. If Al-Qaeda becomes more of a headache to the Taliban than we are, then it's the Taliban themselves that could get rid of Al-Qaeda. So the last remnants, the last 100 Al-Qaeda, I don't think are that much a problem. The problem is the viral ideology that's spreading among the young people across the world. What do we do about that? On the internet today, things like happiness is martyrdom are vying for yes we can, or the Republican alternative, whatever that is. And we don't know how to master or steer it. We don't know what to offer these kids. We don't know what opportunities and what heroism to offer them. I was at the White House and I was briefing people on this, and someone from Cheney's office said, these individuals have got to take responsibility, however young they are. If not, we're going to bomb them and kill them. And I say, excuse me, who are you going to bomb? You're going to bomb London? You're going to bomb Madrid? You're going to bomb our allies in Morocco? There's got to be a different way to turn these young people away from Al-Qaeda and towards something better.
Hey, well, I'm sure we're on the cusp of figuring out what that way is. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. As always, a good conversation, and nobody else out there is spending time talking to people associated with Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and the Taliban on a regular basis. So,
well, if you talk to the enemy, if you listen to the enemy, you find out lots of things. I bring this up Again, in Congress, people look like I'm like I'm from Planet Fruitcake. If someone's trying to kill you, you want to find out why they're trying to kill you. At the very least, that'll help you defend yourself.
Yeah, that doesn't mean talking to them and finding out more about them doesn't mean you can't still kill them.
That's right.
But it might help. All right, Scott, the book is Talking to the Enemy. Thanks for your time and patience with us. We appreciate it.
Sure.